The views expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station.
Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Insights. I'm Kevin Hodge. Today we're joined by the Michigan Wildlife Council. Today joining me is Carol Rosen. Carol, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
So Carol, what can you tell me about the Michigan Wildlife Council?
Well, the Michigan Wildlife Council was created by legislation or bills that were passed in 2013, signed into law in 2014 by Governor Rick Snyder, and consists of 9 individuals who represent a diverse population throughout the state of Michigan. We come from various backgrounds and various professions and work together and have been working together since our first meeting. Since 2016, our job is to educate the public about the essential role played by sportsmen and women in the management of our wildlife, in the economic impact that hunting and fishing have here on the state of Michigan, and how they're an integral part of Michigan's rich outdoor heritage. Since our education campaign began in 2016, we've been highlighting all of the hard work that goes on behind the scenes every day to ensure that Michigan's forests, waters, and wildlife are conserved and are here for generations to come. Now, this work takes place in every corner of the state by public and private groups, by scientists and volunteers, and by hunters and anglers. And right now, at the zenith of the hunting season, we have some major league wildlife management going on here in the last 2 weeks of November. And it's important that this work be done because we found initially we did research to determine the level of understanding about the importance of hunting fishing here in the state of Michigan. And we found that the vast majority of Michiganders don't understand the need for wildlife management by humans, nor are they aware of the primary sources of funding for managing our forests and waters and wildlife. It's essential that scientific wildlife management practices are engaged to ensure that our forests, waters, and wildlife, again, are here for generations to come. And you'll note I keep saying here for generations. That's the key focus of our campaign because we found that whether you hunt or fish, everyone cares about Michigan's wildlife and natural resources.
Absolutely. And what can you tell me about some of these conservation efforts that the Michigan Wildlife Council is partaking in?
Well, it takes a lot of people to do the work that takes place to manage our natural resources and our wildlife. And clearly the DNR does all of the heavy lifting with support from local municipalities as well as conservation groups and hunters and anglers. And one such huge conservation group is Michigan United Conservation Clubs, called MUCC. A number of years ago, they developed this really great program called On the Ground, where excuse me, they engaged citizens and volunteers in on-the-ground stewardship and habitat enhancement projects at various locations on state land. And this has engaged individuals in participating in habitat management and given them kind of ownership of being a part of the great wildlife management history here in the state of Michigan. And one of the great things about these programs is that they continue to enhance habitat for wildlife, which has contributed to the restoration of a number of species over years, not since the OTG program, but over many, many years and excellent wildlife management, the restoration of certain species that were close to being extirpated here in the state of Michigan, such as wild turkeys or our elk herd. And if I could talk about elk for just a second or two. Elk are a native species here in the state of Michigan, but during the vast timbering era that took place in the late 1800s and early 1900s, elk were pretty much gone here in the state of Michigan. But fortunately, conservationists put together a plan to relocate 7 elk from western states and transport them by train to an area in Sheboygan County that's part of the Pigeon River Country State Forest. The Pigeon River Country State Forest is the core area of our elk herd, and they have, through sound wildlife and habitat management, been provided with the food and the resources they need to thrive. So the elk herd went from the 7 who were brought here to reestablish the herd to a herd size that now exceeds 1,000.
What can you tell me about what hunters and fishers contribute to conservation?
Well, they contribute by actively participating in wildlife management, as hunters are doing right now during firearm deer season. And actually, there is an elk hunt now, because part of the wildlife management is maintaining the herd at a certain size so that they don't exceed the area or go beyond the area that is their core area. So hunting is part of one of those tools, and they have a limited hunt every year to maintain the size of the elk herd. So another way that hunters contribute in a big way in conservation is that they pay for it. Surprisingly, we learned that most people in Michigan don't realize that the primary source of funding for wildlife conservation here in the state of Michigan is through the sale of hunting and fishing licenses, not your state taxes. And in 2018, that represented nearly $61 million in revenue from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses. And here in the state of Michigan, the economic impact overall is huge. Hunting and fishing activities, we found in a study that was done last year, generate over $11 billion of economic impact here in the state of Michigan, and also support 171,000 plus jobs, which is pretty substantial. In fact, hunting and fishing activities at that level represent being one of the top 10 job-producing industries in the state of Michigan. So whether you're a hunter or an angler, everyone benefits from hunting and fishing here in the state of Michigan.
Absolutely. So when you're going to pick up your hunting license or fishing license, you probably don't even think about it, but it's actually going towards conservation.
Absolutely, there's no question. And I would encourage people, even if you don't hunt or fish, but you care about wildlife being here for generations to come, buy a hunting license, buy a fishing license, because that's how we manage and conserve these really valuable and priceless resources.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Carol. Really appreciate it. And if you want to check out more of what the Michigan Wildlife Council is doing, you can visit www.hereformioutdoors.org. We're going to have more on this issue after the break. Welcome back. We are entering the second week of rifle season, and Michigan hunters are on track to deliver the most venison donations ever. Joining me is Melissa Burns of the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan and Kathy McClure of the St. Vincent de Paul Food Pantry. And thanks for joining us today, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Melissa, what can you tell me about the Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger program?
So the Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger is a nonprofit organization that connects meat processors and hunters with food outreach organizations like the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan and St. Vincent de Paul. Since they started, hunters have been able to provide literally millions of venison meals to those in need in our communities.
And Kathy, how important are these donations to your organization?
Oh, it's a huge benefit to us as far as making our meals that we can do go even farther to help people.
And Melissa, tell us how hunters can donate venison to your program.
So if you are a hunter, there are a couple ways that you can donate your deer. The first way is donating a pound or more of the deer that you are having processed. The other way is to bring your whole deer to any approved processor, and that will be processed free of charge to the hunter. All the ground venison goes to nonprofit charities that provide food outreach.
Melissa, what is the process for getting this venison and distributing it?
So if you wish to donate your whole deer or a portion of your deer, go to the Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger website. All the instructions are there on how to donate your deer and where to donate your deer. And it's important to note that all the venison that is donated through this program stays local. So every hunter knows that he or she is feeding a family in need right here in their community.
Absolutely. And Kathy, tell me how you think it affects the community that we're getting so many donations and we're on track to break a record.
It's I can't even put it into words how much it's affecting us in a good way. We had people that came in and didn't even want to try it. Now they come asking for it because they realize how healthy it is compared to other meats and stuff like that, and brings back memories, and it's just an overall great program. Hope more people take the initiative to take and step up and do it, because it'll help us out a lot.
Beautiful. And Melissa, is there any way that you prepare venison that is maybe special? Is there a special way to cook it?
So I have a really wonderful venison chili recipe. And the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan, in partnership with St. Vincent de Paul and the Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger Venison Donation Program, we are offering a crock pot cooking class in December. And we're going to teach folks how to cook venison chili so that they can provide a healthy meal for their families, utilizing items that you can find in a food pantry.
All right, Kathy, so I'm sure there's many ways that you can cook venison. Can you tell me a couple of those?
As far as the ground venison is concerned, there's lots you can do with that. Chili, of course, is kind of the up here northern favorite, but you can use it for spaghetti, for tacos, and you really can't tell the difference because our processor mixes it with a little bit of like beef or pork suet, which adds a little bit of that fat, I guess you'd call it, because otherwise venison is very lean, very nutritious meat. But because he adds that little bit in there, it makes a big difference in the flavor and everything. It's wonderful.
And you mentioned that not everyone was exactly willing to try it at first.
Right.
So what would you say to try and convince people to give it a try and eat some of that deer?
The biggest thing to me is the fact that how lean it is. It really is a very healthier alternative, and you got to try something new every day. And when you're getting it from us, it's something you can do for your family and make it go farther. It's worth a try.
And would you say that it's a quality meat to be distributing amongst people in need?
Oh, very much so. Especially with the fact that it's burger, you can do so much with it. And like I said, it's a healthy alternative. And if people would just take the time to try it, I think they'd be very surprised at how well they would like it. We've had people that came into the pantry said, I don't want that. Now they're coming back and asking for it, which is great to see. And with growing up in this area and growing up on that kind of meat myself, I encourage others to try it. It's worth it.
And being that we're in Michigan, are you surprised at all that we are receiving so many donations that we're actually going to break the record?
Not really, because we're finding out more and more that people are trying to understand the troubles that others are having, and they're willing to step up and help, especially our community. Our community is awesome. And when they find out that it comes local, stays local, that's huge to people.
And Melissa, can you say something about that a little bit? It stays local. What do you have to say about that?
That's right. I know that hunters take pride in being able to help out their own community, and it really matters when you know that you're helping to feed your neighbors. Also wanted to say that if there are any processors out there that are interested in joining the Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger mission, please give them a shout and get the information and consider becoming one of the approved processors so that we can continue the mission of feeding people in need in our community.
And Melissa, we are in the middle of hunting season right now, but is this the only time of the year that you are accepting donations?
No, actually, there are donations of deer throughout the year, throughout special hunts, the Michigan DNR, and farmers also can acquire special permits to shoot deer during other times of the year. So these donations can come in throughout the year, and they're greatly appreciated.
But how much of a bigger impact is it when the public gets involved during hunting season?
So it makes a huge impact. And what we're really trying to do is get the word out, because many people still don't know that this program exists. So as soon as people know how easy it is to help feed others, I know that they would jump right on board with it.
And Kathy, can you tell me some specific numbers of how many donations you've received this year?
This year, we've received over 1,000 pounds of that venison that was donated. And that's helped us tremendously, because in our last fiscal year, from October 1st to September 30th, we fed over 14,000 people. So to know that that much venison came in to help us feed even more is wonderful.
All right, thank you both for joining me today. And when we come back, we will be visiting a deer processing center, so stay tuned. Welcome back. We are at Standard Provisions, a venison processing facility here in Alpena. Joining me is Tom Schooks. And Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And so tell me, what is the role of this processing station?
They bring in deer, and a lot of the hunters, they want to donate it. Like Hunters Harvest for Charity, there's food banks, St. Vincent de Paul, all kinds of church pantries, a lot of needy people out there. If it wasn't for the sportsmen donating, they would go without.
Absolutely. How long have you been working here, by the way?
Quite a few years, 46 to be exact.
46 years old, so it's safe to say that you're a little bit of an expert on how to clean these deer.
Pretty much.
Absolutely. And so what kind of donations have you been receiving this year?
We got in quite a few deer earlier in the year. They came from the Department of Agriculture, Wildlife Services. Those are the people that check for TB, chronic wasting. They do all the testing, and then if the deer are cleared, they bring them here and we process them for the pantries. In the last 2 years, it's not quite 2 years till January, we did just approximately 16,000 pounds of hamburger, and that's all been donated in this area, 4 counties.
Mm-hmm. And this year we should be seeing a record for most venison donated. What do you think about that?
That's a possibility. It's hard to say till it's over. I would say that it should be close. So far this year we did over 7,000 pounds. So I don't know. We'll see in another month how it works out.
Excellent. And so how can these hunters donate their deer?
All I have to do is bring it here. We fill out a donation slip. They can pick the charity or we can pick the charity. They have to have a valid hunting license. The deer has to be tagged just as if they were going to keep it for themselves, and we take care of it from there.
Mm-hmm. And so tell me about how much of the deer are you using?
100% of it. They use every bit of it. It all goes into hamburger, approximately 2-pound packages.
And do you accept donations all year?
All year round. This is where all the deer are skinned, washed, cleaned, taken care of. Every deer has a name tag on it. It has a phone number and a hunting license number on it. Each deer is separate. After they're skinned and washed and cleaned, these here are deer that are to be caped. Those will be sent to a taxidermy shop. There's, I don't know, there's all kinds of nice bucks people like to hang on the wall. Then they go down this rail system. And they end up in the cooler.
How many deer would you say you have in there, Tom?
There's probably 200 in there right now. 175 to 200. They keep following the rail system, and they end up out in our processing room. After they're processed, they go in the freezer. Then the owner is contacted.
How long is it going to take you to clean all these deer, Tom?
We cut 25 or so every day. Minimum of 25 we process every day.
And Tom, is there anything important that hunters should be reminded of when they bring in their deer to donate?
Yes, the deer has to be properly cleaned. The intestines, the lungs, everything cleaned out and washed out as if they were going to eat it themselves. Then the deer should be taken to the DNR station on M32. They will take the head off for you and they will check for TB, chronic wasting, or anything that might be the matter with that deer. That's the proper way to do it. Then you would bring it here and we would go through the process.
Tom, do you separate all the meats by what kind of meat they are and which part of the deer they are?
Yeah, just for instance, somebody will come in and they'll say they want their chops need to be boneless. They want steaks. They do or do not want roast. How much hamburger in a package? Some want beef added, some want pork added, some don't want anything added. It's entirely up to them however they want it processed, that's how we do it.
And you get donations throughout the year, not just from hunters?
Yes.
Who else do you get donations from?
The Department of Agriculture, which would be the wildlife services, they bring in quite a few deer throughout the year. There might be a farmer that has too many deer in his property that doesn't hunt or don't want to deal with it. So they will call Wildlife Services in Lansing, or they reach them out of Gaylord office, and a crew will go in there and clean out whatever they want to clean out, and those deer will come here and we will process them.
All right.
That's the ones that go to food pantries and stuff like that.
And so what does it mean to you to see all these food being donated and given to a good cause?
Well, a lot of people need it. You know, it's not everybody can afford to go out and eat at a restaurant, or even afford to eat much at home. It's nice to have a little bit of meat and whatever. I think it's instead of it being wasted, I think it's a real good thing.
Thanks for joining us today, Tom, and thank you for this tour. And if you want to see more about this cause, you can visit MichiganSportsmenAgainstHunger.org. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.
The views expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station.
Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Good morning and welcome to this week's Insights. I'm Stephanie Douglas, and Michigan snow keeps piling on in our state, and our snow drivers are working extremely hard making sure that the roads are safe and clear for drivers. This morning I have with me joining Josh and CJ for the County Road Commission. Good morning, guys. How are you guys? Good morning. Good morning. I want you guys to tell me what's going on a day-to-day basis. How long are you guys out here? Tell me a little bit how you guys operate on a day-to-day basis.
Day-to-day, generally we work 8 hours. If there's a snowstorm, we're working 10 to 16. Sometimes we get called in at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Sometimes we work till midnight. Kind of all depends on what the snow dictates.
And CJ, how long have you guys been working here?
I've been here just over 2 years now.
Okay, so tell me why training is important. Does anyone want to answer that?
Training is pretty important because we get new guys and they've never driven on the icy roads or in 2 foot of snow.
Okay, and so how long are you guys out here plowing certain areas? And sometimes do you guys even have to replow areas?
We try to get a hole through all the roads on the first day of the storm. Sometimes it takes 2 days, depending on how bad it is.
Just tell me a little bit about your recall on the worst snow that we had now in Alpena.
Since I've been here, April of 2017, we got quite a bit of snow, a lot of blowing and drifting. Took us 3 to 4 days to get everything opened up, cleaned up, widened out. The drifts, they were a lot of work.
How much snow did you guys have that year?
I think we got around 20 inches somewhere, give or take. It was just the wind that really pushed it around on that particular storm.
When you guys have severe snow storms like that, how many guys are out on the road?
Full crew, right around 20 guys. They're out.
Okay. And what would you say, CJ, is the primary goal of the County Road Commission?
The safety of the public is the first concern, getting the roads cleared so everybody can be safe.
Okay, and when you guys are out on the roads, tell me, what do you guys have to watch for? Because there's always objects in the roads. You never know if they're kids. Do you guys have any procedures that you have to follow when you're plowing the roads?
A lot of safety concerns to watch out for. You have to watch out for abandoned cars, objects in the road. Kids playing in the ditches. They love, on snow days, they love to play in the ditches, play on the hills, the snow piles. You got to watch out for that. Cars that are in the ditch spun out. A lot of safety concerns on the road. You got to be watching out all the time.
So now let's talk about salt. How much salt and what type of salt do these trucks carry?
Our trucks carry a dry salt. On our tandems, we're having about 16 ton. On our singles, 10 to 12 ton.
And so you said we're using dry salt. So I guess my next question is, what do you want the public, from each of you guys, what do you want the public to know, tips or procedures when you're out on the road, when you're plowing? What do you want drivers and the public to know?
Biggest thing is stay back. When we're up at an intersection, you don't know if we're going to back up. We have a lot of blind spots. We can't see vehicles when they're right behind us, and you need to stay back close to 500 feet.
Well, we're plowing the intersections out. Definitely, like as Josh said, stay back, give us some room to work around. Don't crowd the plow. And then also, when we come by, there's a good chance we're coming back by in a little while. So give us a chance to get the road cleared out and get it widened before you start shoveling, to save a lot of the stress on yourself and us also.
Okay, so tell me how you guys start to prepare for these type of conditions when the snow is arriving.
So when the storm's coming, usually we'll get the trucks prepped up, get them greased, ready to go, check all the fluids, make sure the blades are in proper condition, get all the trucks ready to go, and the equipment, make sure it's up to for the storm coming up.
Other than that, we just make sure that we got salt in the barn. We usually stockpile that in the fall. Right now, behind us, they're mixing sand and salt. That way we can put that on our country roads, on the gravels, and some of the pavements.
How long does it take to fill some of these trucks?
Less than 2 minutes to fill a truck. It doesn't take long at all.
Okay, awesome. Well, guys, I know it's been cold out here, but I thank you so much for giving me this interview. We're going to be back with more information on how to stay safe during these winter seasons. Welcome back to this week's Insights. I'm Stephanie Douglas, and we're continuing the conversation on how to stay safe during the winter season. I have with me, joining me is Lieutenant Eric Hamp to discuss some safety tips on winter driving. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Good. So tell us some tips that drivers could use driving out in the snow and the winter weather conditions.
Yep. So fortunately, or I guess unfortunately for some people, we've received early snow this year, and oftentimes we see a lot of accidents that come with that, which has been no exception this year. So just some simple basic driving tips we recommend for motorists are, number one, just to slow down. Okay, just because the speed limit says it may be 55 doesn't necessarily mean that's a safe speed, depending on the road condition. Other safety tips would be to make sure that you're leaving some extra space between you and the vehicle in front of you, because in winter road conditions, when it's icy and snow covered, your vehicle does not stop as quickly as it would on dry roads. So leaving that extra space between you and the car in front of you is something that every vehicle should be doing this time of year when the roads are slippery and snow covered.
It's definitely case by case situation because, like you said, just because the road size is 50, you kind of want to slow down a little bit because black ice is real. It's not something that's visible. So tell me about recapping the last 2 weeks. It's an increase of car accident calls that come through during this year. So tell me, just dating back 2 weeks ago when the snow started, how many has the police department responded to, and what things have you guys seen?
This year we've seen snow starting a little bit earlier. I don't believe we've had snow on the ground for deer season in quite a few years. So we've definitely seen an uptick in the amount of accidents that have been occurring, both within the city and the county of Alpena. So fortunately, at least within the city, no major traffic accidents resulting in injuries. However, we've definitely handled a pretty steady dose of car accidents, what we call just property damage accidents, where nobody is hurt, but there's damage to vehicles. So, I don't have the number in front of me how many we've handled, but, with the recent snowstorm that we had, it was a pretty steady calls of accidents throughout the day.
Okay. And now, so I'm going to flip this a little bit on you because we're talking about drivers and tips and how to stay safe and what they should do as procedures while driving in the snow. But let's talk about law enforcement. When you guys are responding to calls, I know that the same advice that you're giving us, you guys have to follow as well. So, but you also have a response time to follow to. So what are you guys doing to stay safe in driving conditions, like how to drive in the snow?
Right, so it applies to law enforcement too. We have to be driving, safely with due care and caution as well. So, we'll activate our lights and sirens if needed. And typically our response time may be a little bit slower because it's going to take us longer to get to the accident.
Do you inform the public about that? And how slow? Okay, so tell me, I guess, the average response time.
Yeah,
and
our
then
response
tell me
time
how
is
it goes down.
Our
decreases.
response time in the city of Alpena is very quick.
Okay.
We're typically on a call within less than a minute. It just kind of depends on where you're at in the city,
Sure.
but it's a relatively small area. And we're fortunate enough that we have people working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So we always have somebody who's ready to respond to the call. Mm-hmm. And we're also fortunate that we have our own ambulance service that works in the same building as us. So if there is paramedics needed, we have paramedics who are always on staff who are working and are responding as well. And oftentimes, if they don't beat us to the call, they're right behind us.
Sure. So now tell me how it can be delayed a little bit because of the weather conditions.
Yeah, so it does. It's no different than the citizens driving. It slows us down. We have to slow down. We don't do anybody any good if we don't get to the call safely. So if something happens to the officer responding to the call, now we've just created 2 times the mess, right? And we don't want that to happen. So our guys know to slow down and obviously adjust their driving habits according to the weather and the road conditions.
So explain to me additional driving tips that drivers would need to know driving in the snow condition.
Sure. So a very common one that we often see people in violation of is not turning their headlights on. Mm-hmm. So for example, right now it's lunchtime. It's obviously daylight out. However, if it was snowing heavy, the visibility is not what it normally would be on a clear day, right? So what happens is citizens often have their headlights on the automatic setting. And oftentimes the car doesn't sense that it needs to turn the headlights on. So folks think that their headlights are activated, although they're actually not. Mm-hmm. So we just ask that folks, when it is daylight out, and certainly you need to have your headlights on to warn other motorists that you are on the roadway, is that you make sure that your headlights are on. You may need to simply just turn your automatic headlight switch to standard setting where it's just activated manually instead of automatically. Mm-hmm. Okay. Some other tips would be making sure that you're cleaning off your windshield. We've all seen it. You get up to the stoplight and you got somebody looking through a hole about that big on their windshield. That's not safe, and it's also it's a violation of the traffic laws. Okay, you have to make sure that you have a clear vision. That would be a vision obstruction. You have to start your car up and make sure that you're scraping it off. Make sure that your headlights and your brake lights and your windows are all clear of snow and debris.
So I guess we should tell drivers to give about 20 to 30 minutes of starting the car.
Yeah, I don't think you need to go that long, but for example, like in the morning, I normally let my truck run for 5 or 10 minutes, mm-hmm. Scrape it off and make sure that the windshield is clear before I take off, so it's safe when you hit the road, right? Because again, it's not safe if you're looking out a small area on your windshield because you don't have the full view of vision.
And I'm pretty sure sometimes when you're driving, you can see snow coming off on the top of someone's car and hitting the person behind them. So it is important to, wipe
Certainly,
the whole car
it can
off.
be dangerous as well with ice chunks and that falling off of the vehicle, absolutely.
Exactly. So I wanted to ask some additional questions, but before I ask that, can you provide us a little bit with more tips on what the public should do?
Sure. Just some maintenance tips. Make sure that your windshield wipers are in good working order, especially this time of year. It's so important to keep your windshield clear. Make sure that your battery is healthy. Have a mechanic check the strength of your battery.
Because cold temperatures.
Cold is hard on the battery, and it takes more power to fire up your vehicle. So if you have a weak battery, it can cause a lot of issues, and this is not the time of year for your vehicle not to start. And
Boys
tires. Tires are extremely important. So either snow tires or check the tread on your tires, and if it's getting low, it's definitely a good investment to make sure that you have good tires in your vehicle.
Awesome. So, wrapping up this interview, this was great and very informational. What would you tell the public if you wanted to leave them on a last thought about driving in snow conditions? Because a lot of people, including myself, this is their first time driving in these type of conditions. So what would you like the community to know about staying safe during the winter weather?
Biggest thing is slow down when the roads are not in good condition. Leave yourself a little bit extra time to get to your destination. And when we are getting snowstorm and bad weather, if you don't need to go out, don't go out. So oftentimes we know when snowstorms are coming, make a plan. Get your grocery shopping and your errands in before the snow hits, so you don't have to put yourself in jeopardy and going out on bad roads.
Well, thank you so much, Lieutenant Eric Hamp, for giving us some safety tips to look forward to while on the road. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue the discussion on winter safety tips. Welcome back to this week's Insights. I'm Stephanie Douglas, and previously we spoke with the County Road Commission and even Alpena Police Department on how to keep the roads safe and clear during the winter conditions. Let's take a look at how some local citizens say how they prepare their car before heading out on the roads.
Yeah, we do scrape the snow off the windscreens and the roof and everything else so it doesn't fly when you go driving. Just don't be in a hurry, adjust yourself to the conditions.
Take your time.
Yeah.
And please get the snow off the top of your vehicles, because that can really cause an accident, that can break a window.
As long as you go slow and careful, you should get there safely.
Before you head out on the roads, you always want to make sure you heat up your engine before heading out. You also want to make sure that your windshield is cleared off, and so is the roof. Make sure that your tires are clear of snow and ice.
Normally we go and start up the car early, so this way it has a chance to warm up. Make sure all the windshield, all the windshield and the windows are, scraped, cleaned off. Make sure your headlights and blinkers are cleaned off in the back. And then from that point right there, we go and we take off early from the house. So this way, wherever we're going to go, we're going to give ourselves enough time to get there. And if the roads are where they're starting to get pretty bad, you want to make sure you take your time. You don't want to go very fast, and you want to leave enough room between you and the vehicle in front of you, just in case, a deer pops out or somebody wants to hurry and stop. A matter of fact, when I was a lot younger, I was going way too fast for the road conditions. The car in front of me stopped, and I went and I ran into the back end of it. It taught me a pretty valuable lesson on, what I should be doing when the roads start getting really snowy or icy. And I remember the other time of having it to where we were going downstate and suddenly there was black ice. Hit black ice, there's all kinds of people in the ditches and everything on 75. But the one thing you want to remember on, with black ice, you want to kind of let your foot off the gas slowly. Don't go and hit your brakes, because the only thing you're going to do is probably, initialize you to go and spin out or start skidding and then lose control of your vehicle. For the young drivers, you want to go and make sure that you are paying attention to what you are doing. No cell phones, don't go and play with the radio, both hands on the steering wheel, and just take it nice and slow and easy. Give yourself enough time for braking. Make sure there's more than enough room between you and the car in front of you, and just, take your time, and be focused on what you're doing.
And lastly, complete a full walk around from your car to make sure that your license plate is visible and clear for people to see. Now that your vehicle has been completely cleared off, check your mirrors, remember to drive slow, and stay safe. Until next time, I'm Stephanie Douglas on Insights.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.